Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Stuart Sanks, a Renaissance man. He teaches third graders at the Studio School in North Glen, Colorado. And in his spare time, he performs all over town as his drag character, Shirley Delta Blow. Please enjoy Stuart Sanks. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today I am here chatting with Stuart Sanks. Stuart and I met through mutual friends after a production of Spam-A-Lot that I was in as the Lady of the Lake. And we hit it off. And since then, we have had the opportunity to do some performing together in one of Shirley Delta Blow's drag shows, or actually a few of them, several years ago, which was a complete and total blast. And I think we've had opportunities at pride parades and festivals to cross paths as well. And so welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you're here.
Oh, thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here. It's so great to see you. I loved getting your email. And of course I was like, yes, whatever this is, let's do it.
Awesome. Well, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit about who you are and what you do so those listening have a better sense of all the amazing things you're up to.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, Stuart Sanks. For my day job, I am a third grade teacher. So I teach at an arts integration magnet school in North Glen, Colorado called the Studio School. We're a K-5 school, and everybody choices into that school. And we do your standard Common Core curriculum, reading, writing, math, science, social studies, character, behavior, all that kind of stuff. And on top of that, the students get lots of opportunities to perform. They do a full-scale musical production in first, third, and fifth grade. Then they do a dance concert in kindergarten, second, and fourth. And then every year we have the full school musical. And so students have lots of opportunities to perform. They also have, after school, there's choir and a drumming club and improv club, things like that. But students also get the opportunity to explore what we might traditionally call as art, right? That drawing, painting, sculpture. So they do 2 days a week with a two-dimensional artist and 2 days a week with a three-dimensional artist. And then they flip-flop that extra day in the middle. So we have a great community, wonderful school there, and lots of opportunities for students to be creative. And now arts integration, so the idea is that they're learning, let's say they're learning movement in their performing arts class, dance, choreography, rhythm, things like that, how to create a dance. And then let's say in science, we're learning about echolocation and bats and things like that. And so then an arts integration model would say, we're going to ask you to explain echolocation and or the life cycle of a bat, and you're going to marry that with your understanding of dance. You're going to create a dance that explains echolocation.
I love that.
Right. And the idea is when they do that, they understand dance better because they have a context in which to use it to communicate a different idea, which is science. And then they go deeper into the science because they have to understand it, not only to be able to explain it verbally, but now we have to be able to explain it using a completely different vocabulary, which is the vocabulary of dance. And so that's one of the things that we love for them to do.
I love that. It actually makes me think of a lot of stuff that we do in dance movement therapy, how when you use your body to do something and then we'll also ask you to verbalize it, you're actually connecting more neural networks in your brain to anchor it into your system. So
Yeah.
Well done.
Yeah, thanks.
Love it.
We do a lot of things like that, especially with work on freezing, right? We
Mm-hmm.
explain, okay, show me with your body what happiness looks like, or what summer is, right? And so we're exploring that. And as an actor, and this is that
Mm-hmm.
when we just have the words to say, our performance is at a shallow level. But once we incorporate the emotion, our intention into our body, right?
Yeah.
We're then using all of our systems at the same time to tell the story of the character, of the play, of the piece, whatever it is. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah. So that's my day job. It's a fun little place. I love it.
Yeah.
It's a great little school. It was funny. I didn't even know that this school existed until I was interviewing for a job at a different school.
Mm-hmm.
And the person interviewing me says, okay, you'd be a good fit for us here, but why aren't you at the studio school? And I was like, what is the studio school? Tell me more. And so that was kind of like the beginning of the end at one school and the beginning of the beginning
At the other.
at the other. And it's been glorious, so yeah, so that's my day job.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you mentioned my side hustle.
Yes.
As a teacher, we all have a side hustle, right? You mentioned the other is so I have an ongoing drag character, and her name is Shirley Delta Blow, and she is, let's see, she just celebrated her 9th birthday.
Oh my gosh. Really?
Can you imagine? Isn't that
That's
amazing?
amazing. Well,
Yeah.
congratulations. Happy birthday.
Thank you. And so she is this fun, delightful drag character, kind of, she loves that 40s 50s housewife kind of vibe, those A-line dresses and petticoats and crinolines and things like that. So we have a good time. So she does lots of things around town. She hosts a couple nights of bingo. Drag queen bingo is a popular thing at the Alamo Draft House, which is a movie theater chain, right? And so we
Mm-hmm.
do that a couple times a month. She hosts Drag Queen Story Time, and
I
she's
love it.
been all over the place. Libraries in Louisville, Lafayette, obviously Denver, Park Hill,
Mm-hmm.
Boulder. We have been to we do bookstores. We've been
Mm-hmm.
Second Star of the Right. We've done the Book Bar, and so we get a chance to sit and read wonderful stories. To kids and just be in the presence of children
Mm-hmm.
and as this character, it's really a lot of fun. And then I think the big thing she does is she hosts a monthly show that Mari has been in several times. It's called Drag Decades at the Clock Tower Cabaret right downtown. The big clock tower right there at 16th and Arapahoe. So that's a fun show. We take a decade, obviously the title, and I remember you performed in this, I think maybe the 60s and the 70s with us.
60s, 70s, and then we did a musical.
Oh, yes.
Musical theater
Yeah,
adventure.
stage and screen or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and so we take a decade from our, history, and we look at the music. So everybody performs music from the 1960s, and then we talk about, we're interacting with the audience. We talk about, hey, what was the fashion, or what were some of the important historical events. I remember the first show we did. We talked about the big event. One of the big events in the 60s was Woodstock.
Yeah.
And we were just like, no, Woodstock. Who's got memories about Woodstock? And I was like, was anybody there? And this little old lady in the back raised her hand. And I was like, what? You were there? And so I came over and chatted with her for a little bit. She was really sweet. I was like, okay, what was your favorite memory from Woodstock? She goes, I don't remember much of it at all. And I was like, okay, then you did Woodstock right, apparently.
Exactly. That's amazing.
Yeah. So we have a kind of a crew that of local performers that are there on a monthly basis, and we rotate through some guest stars and things like that. We do sometimes, like you did, live singing. Sometimes we do lip sync, and we have some funny little games, and we tell jokes, and it's just a kind of a fun little variety show. So, and we do that, and we go through all the different decades. 60s, I think, is as far back as we go, because
Mm-hmm.
honestly, the music of the 50s gets really short. Like each song is 2 minutes long, and I was like, friends, we're gonna have to do like 8 numbers to keep the crowd entertained because they're really short. But yeah, they love coming to the 80s and the 90s. That's kind of
Oh yeah.
the bread and butter there. So,
It was
but it's
so
like, yeah,
much fun.
yeah. So that's what we do. And then, Shirley gets invited to do, other events. Sometimes there's a fundraiser event where she will just kind of flit around and, chit chat with people, or she MCs different events.
Mm-hmm.
Shirley's been on the main stage at Pride, every summer for the past several years. So, there's all kinds of events where you'll see her pop up.
Yes, it's always very fun. I was at the Denver Art Museum one evening.
Oh yes.
Shirley popped up there doing an art tour.
Yeah. That was a lot of fun. Yeah.
Nice.
So so there's that kind of that idea from like acting of creating a character that goes over a long period of time, not just the length of the show, but it's almost like a separate persona. You look at Dame Edna or Dixie Longate, who does Dixie's Tupperware Party, who have this character that they take with them. There's all kinds of examples, but so there's that, but there's also then some of that improv, because you're interacting with people in a new environment. It's not a scripted show. You don't know what they're going to say, so you don't know what you're going to say. Right. But and Shirley is this. She's very. She's funny, but she's kind. I'm not going to make the joke at the expense of an audience member.
Mm-hmm.
If I do, it'll be at my expense, right? Like I did something stupid or whatever, so I'll tell you about that. But so there we go.
Your life is just literally bursting with creativity.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah, that's amazing, and I love it. And I have so many questions, but first, to start, I want to know, what does it mean to you to be creative?
Well, when you asked this question, when you sent it in the email, I looked up, some definitions of creativity. It's, like you do, like you're a good research person, right? To say like, okay, because creativity is that idea of you want to say something new or original, right? And it's valuable. It has a place kind of somewhere in some section of life, right? But we look at creativity as this idea, like I'm going to paint like Picasso or Rembrandt. I'm going to understand the rules and break the rules, or whatever those things are. Creativity. I'm going to write a play like Angels in America, or I'm going to sing an amazing song. But for some people that is true. But I think for most of us, creativity is this idea of, how can I be authentically myself in the world?
Yeah.
Whatever that is, whatever contributions I'm going to make, how are they authentically me? Because if that idea of creativity is being original and being valuable, useful, then the problem that we see is, if I paint just like Picasso, now there's two of us in the world doing the same thing. Right. When in reality, I should paint like Stuart. I should sing my song. I should create my thing. And so I think creativity in that way can be much, I don't want to say simpler, but it's like this everyday type of thing. I walk out of the house dressed as Shirley, right? That's an act of creativity, right? Because I am now putting out something into the world that didn't exist before and doesn't exist with any other person. Right. There could be 100 drag performers. Yeah. But we're going to look different. We're going to sound differently. We are going to do different numbers, right? We're going to have a different take on what that means. Some people are going to be dramatic doing Edith Piaf, and some people are going to be, really dancey, doing, and somebody's going to be really poppy like Madonna, right? Somebody's going to be, I guess like a Beyonce, or, so there's we all take a different take on that. Yeah. So those are some ideas around kind of creativity, but I think I want to latch on to that idea of being authentically yourself, not copying someone else, not trying to be someone else. Yeah, now, I like that idea of, I don't know, when you were talking, I just had this image of what sounded like to me that at times people put the idea of creativity on a pedestal, and you're saying, take it off the pedestal, put it on you, and authentically show up
And that in itself is creative.
Yes. Right. Because, another note that I wrote is that, every day we don't have a script.
Right.
We don't walk around with a script in our hand, like, oh, well, Stuart's supposed to call Mari at 9 o'clock, but he called her at 9:03, so, okay, we need to follow the script, and then she's going to say this, and I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to sigh and turn and look, we don't have that. So in some sense, we are exploring our creativity by our interaction with people in the world. And even when we're by ourselves, right, we have this, we don't have a script that's telling us this is what you do. Right. So we are improv artists in some sense, in that I don't know what you're going to say, you don't know what I'm going to say, and so we take that information in, we listen to it, we process it, we respond to it, and then we say something else. Right. So we have that. But even like the act of getting up and putting on your clothes is a creative, because you have to make choices.
Right.
And maybe you have this favorite outfit, and maybe you saw it in a magazine or whatever, and you're like, you got all the pieces, and you're just going to put that together. Well, that's fine, because you still have to reassemble the parts.
Right.
You still have to choose it, right? So I think there's a big idea of choice in creativity as well, right? Because we say, oh, well, does this go together? Does this look good? Well, and you have to say to yourself, yeah, or no, it doesn't.
Right. Your aesthetic is different than my aesthetic, and what you would put on and how you would put it on is very different than how I or someone else would.
Yeah. So those are some creative choices that we make every day. And it's not on that pedestal of, because people think like this idea of, if I can't write the next great American novel, I'm not going to write a novel.
Right.
Well, if anybody's ever done the artist way, right, you've already killed your creativity right there. You're not going to write the great American novel until you write the crappy American novel. Right? Because now you've written a novel.
Yeah.
Right? Because the idea is, if you don't allow yourself to do something poorly, you will never allow yourself to do it well, because you won't get past that point.
Yeah, that actually leads right into my next question about kind of challenges around creativity and what you're talking about. But I'm curious, in your own life, what are the challenges you bump up against with creativity, and how do you navigate them?
Right. A great line, obviously, from Angels in America just came to me, which is, you'll figure this out, darling, after your second theme party. It's all been done before. Right. So like as Shirley, right? as Shirley, we do a show from the 80s. And I have my go-to numbers that I love to do in the 80s, right? I'll do my Walking on Sunshine. I love a little Betty Davis eyes, right? Throw me some Cyndi Lauper.
Yes.
Little Get Away with a little Tina Turner, so all kinds of great stuff, songs that were important to me, obviously, up in the 80s. But then it becomes this idea of, wow, if I start every 80s show and I do the same set in every 80s show, the audience is going to be bored, but also eventually I'm going to get bored.
Yeah.
Now, the problem with doing songs from the 80s is that the 80s is finished. I know. I hate people. I hate to tell some people that, because they are still living there, but they're not making any more 80s music now. Maybe 80s sounding music, or they're making a cover of an 80s song. But all of the music that was created in the 80s it's a finite, right? It's a finite sample or finite collection. So we can pick and choose only from a certain number of songs. But I don't know. I think for me it becomes, maybe I do the same song 6 times, but I don't do them in the same way. I don't wear the same costume. I don't have the same choreography, right? It's never me just kind of phoning it in, right? I can do the same thing, and I'm going in a different direction. I'm walking a different path through the audience, whatever. So I think I think that one of those big things that comes up with a kind of a block to creativity is, oh God, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do. Right. I have a new show coming up. What do I do? What do I do? And so I think some of that for Shirley, I think one thing that she does is she picks kind of her songs that she wants to do, but then she gets the set list from everybody else and make
Oh,
sure that, oh, there's no doubles there. Okay. Because if somebody else is going to do that number, then I'll find something else to do.
right.
Right. But because there's that balance, right? If because I do this one number, I do this Celine Dion number where I teach people how to do old school drag queen moves,
Mm.
stand and deliver at the microphone, and it's like, this is called Feed the Birds, and this is do this. It's a rainbow, right? And so there's a balance between what feeds me creatively as an artist,
Hmm.
and if I'm a performer, what does the audience want?
Right.
And I get requests for that number all the time. So whenever there's a 90s show, I will do it. And sometimes I will do it even if it's not in the right decade, just because I know people want it. And it's such a fun number,
Yeah.
so.
But it sounds like
um,
you try and keep things fresh
yeah,
or you pivot just a little bit to make it accessible again to you from a new
right.
perspective and a new way when you
Yeah.
find yourself bumping up against those creative blocks or
Yeah. And there's and at some point we look at drag and we say, well, don't take it too seriously. Right. I mean, it's not, then we're going to put this creativity back on a pedestal, right? It's not the
right.
Met, right? It's not that there where people are paying, hundreds of dollars to go see a ticket, right? To get a
Mhm.
ticket. It's not $100 million movie that somebody's shooting and has the work of, thousands of people
Right.
based on your decision, what you're going to do.
Hmm.
Right. And so at some point we just say, just get out there and have some fun.
Hmm.
And so there's some creativity in that. And what I love to do, and this, is that Shirley just loves to get out into the audience, right? We'll dance a little bit on the stage and then we'll just go wander around and meet the people.
Yeah.
Right. And so and I love that because, like, especially in um, the hosting that I do, I mean, I say it probably every show that I don't need to come up with a bunch of jokes because the show writes itself. Like, you walk out into the audience and somebody will say something and you'll be like, what are you talking? Like, somebody gave me a $2 bill from Peru or something. And so I was like, well, that's interesting. Let's chat about this. Oh, when were you there? Well, I just came back and,
Yeah.
all right, $2. How much is it worth? Oh, well, it's worth like 25 cents. And I was just like, all of a sudden I was like, wait a second, my performance to you is worth 25 cents. I didn't have any of that in my mind. I didn't think about any of that before, but getting in that. So there's a piece of that, getting over that creativity where it's like, I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to go out
Hmm.
and, find the audience and they're going to help me
Right.
right there. So you get that inspiration from.
And it sounds like you have so much trust within yourself that you can hear something from the audience and take it and run with it.
Yeah.
That's a pretty solid foundation for you as Shirley when you're
Mm-hmm.
in the audience able to say, like, I trust that whatever's going to come out, I'm going to have a response to, and we're going to
Yep.
be able to go from there.
Yep. And it's fun because now I have, and so sometimes it doesn't work, but then I have a response to that. I'll
Yeah.
say something and I try something, right? I get the impulse. I
Mhm.
try the joke. It doesn't work. Then I'll say, don't laugh at that. That wasn't funny. And that's what happens. People laugh at it.
Right.
And so it's like,
Exactly.
okay. So I've provided myself almost this little security blanket. Like, I can try
Yeah.
it. And if it doesn't work, then I can recognize that it didn't work. And then people laugh at it.
And
Right.
let
Because
everyone in on the joke that it didn't work.
right, that we all know that it did. I know that it didn't work, right? So I'm not going to sit there and think, oh gosh, I shouldn't have said that. Why did in my head? Because then as soon as you're in your head,
Mm-hmm.
right, you're out of that moment. You're out of that authentic experience with, the
Yeah.
people. Now, sometimes you get people who get drunk and loud and they want to be the show, and you have to just kind of, there's a difference there.
Right.
Like, I'll go
Navigating.
over and talk to somebody and they'll be like, and I'll be like, okay, we're done talking to her. Yeah, we'll come back around. It's like,
Moving around.
yeah, we're not going to talk to that guy again, right? And sometimes you let the audience in on that because they're feeling the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, that person's really loud. They're so drunk, or they're rude, or whatever. And then you're like, okay, now we all know,
Right.
right? So
You've
we're
got
having
your
this kind of
crowd
moment
control.
together. Exactly.
How do
Exactly.
so I'm curious, as Shirley, you do that, and then how does it show up in third grade with
So creativity or crowd control?
a little bit of both? I guess my curiosity around when there are creative blocks that come up
Yeah.
in third graders or in classrooms, how do you navigate those?
Well, it's the great thing about being a teacher is that teachers by nature solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do, right? So we look at this example of what's happening right now in the teaching world.
Yeah.
Let's see, about 6-7 weeks ago, like we took a break from school. We're going to take an extra week of spring break, and then we're going to come back if everything's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everything wasn't okay, and then in the course of 2 or 3 days, all the teachers I know at my school, in my district, and other districts, operate in much the same way,
Mm-hmm.
said we're going to go to remote learning for the rest of the school year.
Yeah.
So that means for 8 weeks, you are going to be teaching from your home to students in their home. They're going to be working asynchronously, which means they're going to be working on their own,
Mm-hmm.
on their own time, table. They have their own, they can do their lessons in any order, right? They're not going to do them all in the same way. You're not going to have 8 to 9, we're going to do math, and then 9 to 10, we're going to do reading, and then 10, 11 to 12, whatever, we'll do writing, and then we'll go to lunch, right? We don't have the same schedule like we would.
Mm-hmm.
And so teachers then had to basically overnight learn how to use all this technology in order to deliver the lessons. And students then had to figure out how to, access different technologies that they have at their homes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some students are on computers, some like a desktop or a laptop. Some students are on a Chromebook, which is a little slightly different platform. Some students are on an iPad. Some students are working on their phone. Some students have really high-speed internet, so they can, access everything quickly. Some students don't have internet access, and so they have to go someplace to access. And now, well, how does that work if they can't leave their house, right? So all these different problems. All that to say is that teachers have so many different tools in their teacher toolbox. If you go through a teacher training program, you get all kinds of different, tools that you can use in your classroom. And sometimes you can use them in different ways than maybe you learned, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like, we understand the read aloud and guided reading and reading groups, right? Different ways to do that. But all kinds of different tools. I'm going to model the lesson for you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to show you exactly what to do. Then you are going to try it. Now we're going to try it together, and then I'm going to turn you loose and let you try it on your own, right? So
Yeah.
that's kind of this model of,
Mm-hmm.
we call it, I do, we do, you do,
Okay.
as this model, like, right? And that works in dance and choreography,
Yeah.
and so for creativity for teachers, there's all kinds of things that teachers do to engage those
Mm-hmm.
disengaged students, to motivate those unmotivated students. That idea where they're being stretched to understand something that they didn't think was possible before.
Mm-hmm.
And as we understand, we go up, we increase our understanding of things that are
Mm-hmm.
new, and we're gathering new information and new processes and new skills that we can use. So a kind of a long answer to how it shows up for teachers is that, I might have to use one example for a student, and then they're able to go and do this independently. But then I may have to spend, 20 different examples for another student to try to get them to that same place.
Mm-hmm.
And, creatively, I have to, what's going to make sense, right?
Right.
I have to use those skills of evaluation, at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, like, oh, this might be too much, so we're going to scale this back a little bit,
Yeah.
right? So creatively, we call it differentiation in the classroom. right?
Mm-hmm.
Just like we do in a dance lesson, maybe you've got
Yeah.
somebody who can't actually do that, the thing that you want them to do. So we change that up a little bit for them.
Mm-hmm.
Or all kinds of things there. But different students are reading different things in the classroom. There are different reading levels, different levels of writing, and so we don't really. It's not that we adjust the expectations,
Mm-hmm.
right? But and maybe it is that we adjust the expectation, but we don't change the standards, right? We still want
Yeah.
them to use dialogue.
Mm-hmm.
If you use 2 sentences of dialogue in your paper, have you effectively communicated the idea of your story?
Mm.
And then the person sitting next to you writes pages and pages of dialogue. Well, have they effectively communicated their idea of their story? They can
Right.
both get a 3 for doing different amounts of
Mm-hmm.
things, as long as the standard is still met the same way. So again, a long-winded answer to say that teachers use creativity in different ways because they have so many different tools in their toolboxes. They have different challenges
Yeah.
for the students. So
it is a little like crowd control.
yeah.
Well, I'm going to pivot a little bit now, but we're talking about
Okay.
kids, and I'm curious what your earliest memory of creativity or being creative is.
I have this memory that I was sitting we had a little covered patio at I must have been 5 or 6 maybe. And I had my dad's typewriter out, and I was typing this story about this, I don't know, giants or something. I don't even know. And of course, I didn't know how to write.
Right.
So I didn't know what letters I barely knew how to read probably at that time. But I'm telling this amazing story, and I'm typing it out, and my mom's asking me what's going on, and I'm telling her this whole elaborate story, and I'm typing. So I think there's that, right?
Uh-huh.
But then, I think we have lots of ideas of that idea of creative play, right? We're in the
Mm-hmm.
sandbox, and we're, pushing around our trucks or whatever, or we're building sandcastles, or we had a big yard. I think we sat on an acre
Oh, wow.
lot somewhere, and it was just lots and just running around. And so all the games you play when you're a kid, like.
And in your adult life today,
Mm-hmm.
what's inspiring you?
What is it? Sparkly, glittery things, right? It's funny. Like when I started drag, I had like 0 costumes,
Uh-huh.
right? I mean, I was an actor, but I always trusted that, I'm going to have boy costumes. I'm going to keep this old suit, right? I'm going to have this or
Mm-hmm.
that. But now I have these 2 giant racks hanging from the ceiling in the basement that are just filled with prom dresses and ball gowns and sequins and big hair, and I'm getting these just gigantic earrings and things like that. So there's some of that. So there's some of that kind of costume makeup stuff that's inspiring to me, because at some point it's like I got to figure out how to do my makeup. It's like, for the first couple of years I did a show every 3 or 4 months, so I just get a friend to come and help me, and then all of a sudden Shirley started taking off, and I was like, I can't ask somebody to do my makeup
Every
twice a
time.
week,
Yeah.
right? So I got to figure this out. And of course, what's interesting about that is you try something, you do it, you get it figured out, and then there's like you see somebody who's doing it differently, somebody who's been playing around with the techniques, and oh wow, that's a whole, somebody covers almost half their face with eyeliner, and you're like, what is that? Or you put glitter in something, or you blend something, and you try a different shape. So there's a lot of those things that are really interesting for me. Kind of on the back burner for me is something. What I would love to do is start writing some of my own children's stories. Because right now I'm doing Drag Queen Storytime, and I'm using everybody else's books, which is fun because there's some great books out there.
Yeah.
But I had a conversation with a woman a couple weeks ago who does a yoga studio, and she was like, if we recorded you reading some of these other authors' books, we would have to get permission from them, or if we didn't, we would have to take that take that down. We couldn't use that, for our site. And I was like, yeah, but if you wrote your own material, right? If you told your own stories and maybe even had somebody illustrate those for you, then, you're in total control of how you use that, when you use that, who uses that. Then now it's yours.
Yeah.
And so, a friend of mine is as an author, and for years she would travel around, and she's like, people make so much money off of my work. Like, I wrote the book, but they're selling it for $20-$30 a copy. I don't get $30 a copy. So that money's going to support all these other things. And so her realization was, what happens if I own all of my own content? Now it's a little bit more responsibility, right? I don't have somebody who's going to troubleshoot my podcast. I don't have somebody who's going to provide me technical support. If I want to print a book, I have to figure that out. Yeah. But in the end, it becomes, when you, as a creative person, how do you figure out how to own that content?
Yeah.
And then how do you make that, if that's what your living is made from, is that how does that become saleable?
Right.
If that's a word, sellable, maybe.
I love that. I can't wait for your children's books or
I know
teen,
right?
YA book
right. Yeah,
series
so good.
to come out.
Yeah, I've got some great ideas percolating in there, and so we're gonna see.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because Shirley's had some interesting experiences, like even going to a story time.
Oh yeah.
Like, I did a couple. The last two big ones that I did at the Broomfield Public Library and the Lafayette Public Library were met with huge protests. And I'm just like, what is happening here? Like, I'm reading books to kids. I'm reading books that you probably have at your house.
Right.
I'm not reading, if I was reading books like Mari wants to burn down the Catholic Church and supplant the patriarchy, right?
Right. Different experience.
I could see why people might be upset, but I'm reading books about narwhals and unicorns and glitter. And I was like, I don't, yeah. So there's some things around, that kind of experience that might be an interesting take on a story time.
Yeah.
On a children's book, right?
Absolutely. I think that I can't wait for it. I can't wait. I think it will be fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be great fun.
So what's an everyday issue in your life that you've had to use creativity to solve?
Oh, let's see. An everyday issue in my life. Well, my desk is an absolute disaster. It's a mess. I could show it to you right now. I'm a stacker. So I stack things up. I pile things up, and sometimes that's good because like I have a pile of books, next to my bed. Yeah. Right. I kind of use it as a bedside table, but I was like, look, I can pick it up and read these books. Right. So, so I think kind of that I have to kind of figure out creatively, I think there's a piece of that, but there's also a piece of sometimes I just need to go through stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think for me, there's this idea of, because inspiration can come from anywhere, I have this idea in the back of my head that I should hold on to everything. Right? Yeah. Because it's like, look, I've got all these little trinkets. I've got this little bell that's sitting by my desk, and I have this tiny little Roblox rabbit that I got from a student, and here's my R2D2 action figure that I got from somebody, and here's a picture of me and my partner, but then here's my little New Year's Eve hat, my little crown, right? So there's a part of me that's like, I don't need all these things, right? I remember once I was helping the theater company kind of clean out and organize and store all of their stuff, and there's a bunch of like old costumes in there that nobody was ever going to wear again. I was like, we need to just get rid of this stuff. And I remember this very intense conversation with somebody that's like, you can't get rid of that stuff. I think you're throwing away our history. And so there's a kind of that balance that these are some of the things that I have around me that, I got this because this was on top of my drink that I got at Universal Studios, and it was Harry Potter, whatever, pumpkin juice.
Yeah.
And so I need to have that. But at some point you got to say, like, the things don't make me, right? The
Right.
memories make me. And can I enjoy that memory and let that thing go? So I
Mhm.
think for me, creatively, I've got to figure out a way to have a space, that's conducive to me living. Because I just got a new carpet for underneath my desk, because we're on hardwood floors, and you have
Mhm.
to have something. But I have stacks and stacks of books that line the carpet because I'm trying to keep the edge of the carpet down.
Right.
But I've also then I trip over things, right? And I was
Yeah.
like, dang it, right? So I think that's a nice metaphor for how we kind of clutter ourselves,
Mhm.
and we hold on to the things, right? If I hold on to the bell
Yeah.
and you say, hey, Stuart, I've got this really amazing new thing for you. In order for you to get it, you got to let go of that bell. And I was like,
Right.
wow, I don't know if I want to, right? I don't know if I want to let go, because I know what this is. I know the joy that it
Mhm.
brings me. I know the memory that I have with it. But ooh, this new thing. Ooh,
Mhm.
okay, well, right. And so there's some of those issues, I think, that creatively I've got to, yeah. I don't have the answer, right? Because because it's
Yeah.
not really like go get a storage unit and then label all the boxes and
Right.
color code them. That can be creative, but
Yeah.
that's not the solution that I'm looking for, because what I'm looking for is just purging, right? Getting
Right.
rid of the things that, and this happens to me a lot of times, like when I have uh, there's a bad day. It used to be when I had a bad breakup, I would just
Mhm.
like go on a terror. I would go through my stuff and be like, out, get out, oh, get it, rid of it. We just like,
Yeah.
ugh. And and I think my understanding of that was, I've been so busy clutching to these things, these material things, these
Mhm.
clothes, these trinkets, these whatever, that I was missing the fact that I wasn't authentic in this relationship, or I would have seen this coming,
Mm.
right?
The bigger story within all of the things. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, is that I've surrounded myself with these things, thinking, oh, if I have this cute Toy Story glass, it's going to make my life, complete. When the
Mhm.
reality is, it's being authentic in myself, and that's just a glass.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that holds a specific memory for me, a fun time, but what we don't want to have happen is our houses or rooms to be so completely cluttered with things that are supposed to bring us joy, that they don't bring us joy,
Right.
because we're worried about, oh, I've got to clean them all, or I've got to organize them all, or I've got to keep them in boxes, or I've got to
Mhm.
pay $100 a month to have a storage unit to put them all in, and I don't get to see, so all this stuff, I
Right.
mean, circling back to like being a teacher,
Yeah.
I had to pack up my room for the summer.
Yeah.
And not only did I have to take care of all my stuff, but then we had to take care of all of our students' stuff, things that they left. Now,
Mhm.
thankfully, I got kind of an inside scoop from my friend. She's like, I have friends in Italy. They're not going back to school ever, right? So
Yeah.
we're not going to be going back to school anytime soon. So I had most of my students take most of their things home, so
Mhm.
that what we had left was like some writing notebook, or you know some things that they might have forgotten. So it didn't take us that long to do. But in addition to my stuff and student stuff, we had to take everything out of our cabinets, because they're doing construction in our building, and they're going to take down
Oh
all
my
of the cabinets,
goodness.
dig 5-6 feet down looking for the sewer pipes
Oh
to
geez.
change those, right? So this is going to be
Yeah.
this huge project. So I had an experience of doing the thing that I wanted to do in my house just recently in my classroom, and it's like, a little teacher secret is that when teachers get reach their maximum load in May, when they're trying to grade and turn student
Mhm.
stuff back to them and say goodbye to the students for the summer and to the staff, and we'll see you in 3 months, right? When they get to their limit, they take all the stuff that they haven't done and just shove it in the cabinets. And then when they open the doors in August then everything falls out, and then they figure out what to do with it, right? Because
Right.
they're like, I can't do any more right now. I put it away, right? As
Mhm.
creative people, we do that too.
Yeah.
I can't do any more with the story. I'm at a point. I'm just going to put it away for a while. sometimes that's a week, sometimes that's a year, sometimes that's
Yeah.
longer, who knows. So I had to go through everything in my class, every single thing in my classroom. And it's interesting because I threw away a lot of stuff, just some, I was like, what is in this box? I was like, I don't even know what this is, right? And just, I don't even know what this is for, and get rid of all that stuff. But then you look and there's like 40 boxes, like 18-inch cube packing boxes sitting in the corner. And I was like, that's the entirety of my world here at school. Every single thing is right there.
Wow.
So there's something about that that's liberating, that, hey, that's not that much stuff, but it's also like, wow, that's a lot of crap there. I can get rid of more.
So that idea of, sifting through things, an everyday issue, piles of stuff, holding on to memories that are represented by a material item. And that's hard. It's hard for anyone, I think.
Yeah.
And how do you use the creative, flow to, navigate it? I think that how can you find the flow? I think there are times where in my life I've been able to find it more easily than others, but it's like, I need to go through the filing cabinet, or I need to go through pictures, and how do I want to maintain them moving forward? But
and that's the thing too, like how creatively, how do we decide, what do we keep and what goes? And if we keep it, how are we going to put it in a way that's accessible? But that's the thing too. It becomes it's authentic for each individual person.
Absolutely. Circling back to the very beginning.
Right. That's the hard thing about creativity, is that what's creative and what works for you may not be creative or work for me. Absolutely. And so the idea becomes, how do we become our authentic selves, and how do we live whatever that is out in the world? One of my favorite phrases is, comparison is the thief of joy.
Comparison is the thief of joy. Ooh, I like it. Absolutely. Well, to just wrap us up, I have one more question for you. What is your secret to creativity?
What is my secret to creativity? I think that the thing that I'll latch onto right now is, go out there. I mean, one of the phrases that kind of drives my life is, move boldly in the direction of your dreams. Right? Is that idea of go for it. Right? And and you're going to know if the thing, being authentic in yourself, you're going to know if that is authentically you or if it's not. It's almost instantaneous. Oh yeah, like I tell that joke and it landed. Oh, okay. Okay, that didn't land. Okay. All right. But it doesn't mean it was necessarily a mistake, because if you think like this idea of, it's like a maze, right? If I have to go from here to there, and that's the goal, to tell a good joke or to have a good show or write a children's book or whatever, if I'm so worried about making a mistake, I'm not moving any direction in the maze. And if I move to the left and that's the wrong step, I know that's not the direction I'm going to go. Now I can go back to the right. Okay, that feels good. That's the right way. So kind of the secret to creativity is just go for it. Do the thing you want to do. Have fun with it. And RuPaul says, if they ain't paying your bills, pay them bitches no mind. So it's that idea of, if there are people who are important to you, like you have a mentor who's teaching you about dance or writing or whatever, you take their feedback, but that doesn't mean that they're always right for you. Right? But if the people who aren't invested in your life, aren't invested in your success, aren't pushing you in that right direction, if they have things to say about you, don't pay them any mind.
Perfect. Right? I love it.
Yeah, well, so go for it. Do your thing. Do your thing, baby. Do your thing.
Well, thank you so much for chatting with me today.
Oh, my pleasure.
And if people want to get in touch with you or social media presence or learn more about Shirley Delta Blow, how might they go about
Yeah.
doing that?
Well, Shirley's got her website, shirleydeltablow.com, really easy. So that's kind of a list of, now there's not, I mean, there's a whole bunch of upcoming shows that are listed on there, but most of them have been canceled.
Yeah.
But that's where you can go to find, links to things that she has done and things that will be coming up. But she also has a strong Facebook presence. So she does Facebook Live every Saturday morning at 11 o'clock Mountain Daylight Time. We're doing a drag queen story time. It's called I Love That Story. And we'll do that. But she's on Facebook at Shirley Delta Blow and Instagram at Shirley Delta Blow as well. So there's some ways to kind of find her and be in touch, and there's some ways to connect. So
wonderful. Well, again, thank you for taking the time to chat with me about creativity. It's been a pure pleasure this morning.
It's so great to reconnect with you. So I'm thankful that you reached out.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so like us on Facebook and Instagram. We are Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and your family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your comments, reviews, and questions. Tune in Tuesdays for a new episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.